Folks, we have Dahi Mcevoy here with us for a little chat about about himself and obviously Sinn Fein and his take on politics and whatnot. Thanks very much, Dahi, for coming out, having a chat. Looking forward to talking to you.
Thanks very much.
Tell us a little bit about your background. You're from Trim.
Yeah, so I moved to Trim when I was 3 or 4 years old. I was very young, and I've lived there my whole life since. My parents got divorced when I was about 7, and my dad moved back to Dublin. I was up in Trim the whole time, so I'd spend a few weekends down with him during the years. We moved around a lot. Before the housing crisis was the crisis it is today, we were feeling it at the time.
Were you involved in any of the GA or like that? Trim?
I would have been I would have played for Trim Celtic when I was younger, especially on the AstroTurf pitches. Would have played a little bit of rugby with Navan kind of thing. But going up to Dublin at the weekends, missing games, you felt a bit disjointed, so you didn't get the same kind of feel, and so felt a bit on the outside. So I kind of drifted away from it as I was. Would have been involved with the Red Cross then when I was a bit older. I really enjoyed that and was in that up until I left for college.
What's involved with the Red Cross? Because that's like the Red Cross is a thing that is in the background at all these big events, and people don't really. I know people don't really realise the importance of having them there, because when shit hits the fan, they're the ones you turn around to. Where are you guys? So tell me a bit about that.
Yeah, so I kind of stumbled into it. A friend of mine came to me one of the days and said, I'm going to this thing tonight, but don't want to go on my own. Will you come with me? I said, sure, I've nothing on. So went down with her and, had a great time. They train you in first aid. You can do a lot of different certificates with them. You can kind of train up nearly up to paramedic level.
Right, okay, yeah.
And we're at all the events, like you said. We'd be at GA games, we'd be at the Trim festivals, anything that's kind of going on. We'd always be there kind of in the background, just in case something happens.
Can you tell me like a situation that happened or something like that? Without getting into an overview of something that had happened or something.
Yeah, so at the Haymaking Festival one year, a young girl broke her arm. So it was us who were on the scene at the time. Now I wouldn't have gotten hands-on at the time, because luckily we had one of the paramedics with us who was fully trained up to EMT level, so they were able to kind of take over. But that would be the kind of situation, if someone hurts themselves or falls ill, we're on the scene already and we're able to kind of take care of them exactly and make sure it doesn't get any worse until an ambulance arrives. Usually you'd have an ambulance on the scene, like a Red Cross ambulance, but in a situation, you'd call an ambulance to come and get them and bring them to a hospital, but we could have stabilised, splinted the arm, that kind of situation.
It's very important, and as I'm saying there, people don't realise that. They don't realise how important it is until you need them.
Yeah, it's one of those safety nets that you hope you never need, but you're glad it's there when you do.
I've had a couple of, unfortunately, I've had a couple of serious accidents before. I had to use them a few times,
Yeah.
And it's a few tragedies and stuff and things like. But the first responder is critically important. You know what I mean? I think apart from stabilising somebody, but also to let them know that
you're to give them the reassurance.
Because people just go into shock straight away.
Yeah, and that is a lot of what. Especially the first response is, it's talking to them, calming them down, kind of letting them know what the situation is so they don't panic. So that is a good big part of it, is keeping people calm and aware.
Do you still do it?
No, I stopped doing that when I went up to college. I went up to DCU, so that was a few years ago now, and I never really got back into it from then. I kind of studied.
So it's time consuming as well.
Yeah, well, that's it. So.
What was DCU? How did you get on there?
Yeah, I loved it up in DCU. I did economics, politics and law, so kind of delved straight into economics and politics.
You finished that?
Yeah, no, I got that back in, 2019, 2020, just before the pandemic. My final semester was online because of the COVID pandemic, and then I went looking for a job after that. I was like, I'm a graduate now, surely I'm going to get a job, and no hope. So not thankfully, but with the pandemic on, I was able to kind of then go on and do my masters in DCU as well, and keep that going. So I got that in public policy.
Right.
But that was all again remote, so a bit distance.
Yeah, but still, it's a fair achievement, you know.
Yeah, thank you.
So you have the degree, and then you got the masters then
Yeah, I did indeed.
in public
Policy. So kind of how.
Tell me about that now.
So kind of how policy's formulated. You know what's effective policy, what makes it effective, what's ineffective, what makes it ineffective. You know, learning about different stakeholders, how do you engage with your stakeholders, all that kind of situation that not a lot of people kind of see the kind of nitty gritty small bits that kind of can be missed, which leads to a lot of issues that we can see around.
Problems down the line.
Yeah,
where
exactly.
the policy isn't thought out properly, and it's an
That's
issue.
it. Yeah, like it looks great on paper, but if you haven't done the step by step, it's gonna fall flat.
If you're going to like, you know, I'm sure your ambition is to get into politics, and hopefully this election will maybe give you a foothold into it or whatever it is. But in terms of what you're saying there about forming policy, would you look at some of the policies that are coming out of the government? You know, I know that sometimes you can read it on the Oireachtas reports and stuff like that, of the policies that were passed and put through and stuff like that. And obviously there's, you know, one or two that's been trying to be pushed through now at the moment that that don't make sense at all, you know. What's your take on that?
Well, there's a lot of different policies.
I mean, I don't mean the specific policies, but the idea of putting through policies that are not fundamentally in favour of the public, are not in favour of, you know.
Yeah, so you see a lot of policies that are very clearly for interest groups rather than the actual people. You know, you see vulture funds own more student accommodation than DCU, Trinity, UCD, and I think another one combined. You know, that's not helping anyone. You know, that was very clearly designed to help a very specific group of people. You know, whereas you're leaving students and the parents of those students hanging. You know, a lot of students.
What did you do when you were in Dublin for accommodation?
I'm lucky that my grandparents still live in Swords, so I was able to stay with them or commute up to Dublin. Now, the commute from Trim was a bit of a nightmare, especially out to DCU, because there's no direct transport to it, so you'd be hoping the bus would turn up to bring you to Dublin City, and then hoping the bus would be able to get you from
Would it not
city
turn up a lot of the time? Or it was late or something?
Yeah, it'd be kind of hit and miss. You know, some days you'd be lucky and it would be bang on time. Other times you'd be there 40, 50 minutes before something would turn up. Other days it just wouldn't turn up at all, and you'd have no kind of notice. And well, for college students, you'd miss all college. I'm sure work. You know, you'd miss your entire day some of them times. You know,
that is a disaster.
Like public transport policy in general isn't.
I think, what would you see your role going forward as a councillor at that stage? I know it's a kind of a hard question really to answer, because you know, you don't really know what the future is, but I think, bearing in mind what we were just after talking about people emigrating and all your friends and all this sort of stuff, how would you see your role as a councillor, maybe a TD someday, to combat that or to look at that sort of thing?
Well, first up is ensuring that everyone there's enough houses for people to live in, apartments, houses, and somewhere that people can call their own. That's, I think, one of the core things that everyone wants, is somewhere they can call their own. You know, that people can work, you know, that they can have the assurance that they can go to a hospital and be seen and treated. You know, that they're going to be able to put petrol in their cars and not have to forgo dinner that night because of the cost of it. You know, that they can have a family of their own and not be worried about the cost of childcare or the cost of just raising a child in general. You know, sure, you know yourself that it's an expensive business. You know,
no, it's difficult, and then trying to manage time wise, and like I remember my mother kind of looked after us, but now the way things are with finances and stuff like that, it kind of demands the mother or the husband and wife to both of them to work. You know?
Exactly, and that's it. Like, you see the cost of childcare. I mean, I was talking to someone in Trim just the other day. They're saying they were trying to figure out whether it was how they were going to do it. They have an 18-month-old daughter. You know, the mother is is going back to work, and nearly her entire salary is going to be on sending the child to daycare or childcare. You know, that can't happen. You know, you can't be using nearly someone's entire salary to send your child when you can then stay home. You know, if you want people to work or you want childcare, has to be affordable.
Yeah.
You know, you can't be expecting people to be paying through the nose for childcare.
Well, it's kind of it's a disincentive really to work really.
Exactly, and that's it. You know, like people want to work. You know, it's like you said, we're hard working. You know, we want to work.
Yeah.
But yeah, the cost of childcare is a big problem as well.
Is that one of obviously that's one of the things that you're getting on the doors. What other things are? You know, can you talk about some of the stuff that people are saying to you on the doors?
Yeah, so like, the main things I'm getting, especially around Trim and Blythe, is the water situation of the water. You know, we already discussed that, but it's a big problem.
Are people? How are they responding to you? Are they? Are you getting doors? Like, are they not letting you in, or is everybody receptive to you?
I don't know. Everyone's willing to have a conversation. Everyone's willing to chat. You know, I haven't had. No, I'm sure there will be people who will turn around and be like, "Go away! Like we've got nothing to do with you."
Yeah.
I'm sure there will be. You know, it's just a fact of life.
Yeah, come out with sauce with the water.
Yeah, exactly. Run me up the road. You know? That's a fact of life. You can't make everyone happy.
Yeah, of course.
But the job is they might not be happy with you, but if you're helping them, if you're making their life better, that's what we want to do.
Well, it's you know, it's part of your job, I suppose, as well as a counsellor to be seen, to be visual. You know, that you're there, you're making the effort to call to people's doors and stuff like that. And like, I mean, it's like everything else. You could be doing, I'm sure, other things that you'd enjoy, or not so much more, rather enjoy, or whatever it is. But you know, rather than knocking on these doors, and I've done a lot of sales over the years as well. And it can be extremely disheartening when you're not getting a response, or a good response, or you might get somebody just that will just be very negative towards you, and that can really affect your ego or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like, but like, it's good to hear that you're getting a good response generally. And what would people be? You know, what other things apart from the water would people ask you or talk to you about?
The roads, Navan Hospital is a big one. You know, like I was saying earlier, people deserve to be able to go to an A&E or have an ambulance bring them to the A&E that's close to them. You know, it's only 20 minutes up the road from Trim, whereas now you have to go to Blanchardstown or Mullingar or Drogheda, which is 40 plus minutes away. You know, it's not the same. Well, not everyone can drive. There's not reliable transport to bring them to these places. You know.
When you say it in those, as we discussed there for the last while, you know, it's all a kind of a step at things. Like, you have, first of all, the transport. Then you have, if you have a problem, you can't get there. When you get there, there's nobody there. You know what I mean?
It's 100 years of bad governance. Everything is compounding, and I think we're getting to a stage now where people are starting to see how there is a root to all of these problems, and it's just bad governance. It's putting individual interests and business interests above the people's interests. And that's something we want to change.
How do you see, like, say, from Sinn Féin's, from their kind of idea, their way of thinking, and that washes down obviously through you as a candidate and stuff like that. What is the mindset within, or what you're working with within Sinn Féin that will change things?
I think it's the fact that we are, we're grounded. We are speaking to the people. We're not just speaking to interest groups, vulture funds, businesses. We are speaking to everyone on the ground. We'll speak to anyone who's willing to speak to us. We're not shutting doors on anyone. If someone wants to talk to us, we will talk to them. And I think that's something that has kind of been left by the wayside by others, is that they'll only talk to who they want to talk to. We're willing to talk to everyone. And by doing that, we get a bit of an understanding about what people want. And that's how we move forward. There's no point building in Ireland for the future if it's only a future for a select few. If you want a future for everyone, for your children, your children's children, somewhere, in Ireland where they can all live, where they can all get health care, they can all, hop a bus or a train, or move around or get jobs. You need to talk to the people. You need to know what they want, and that's something we want to do. So what we want to do is we want to bring the people back into the decision making. We don't want it to just be left up to a handful of people. We want the people's input into everything.
Well, that makes sense, and that sounds very the way democracy really should be.
Exactly.
Effective democracy. Do you know what I mean? What would you do if there was a policy within your party that you didn't agree with? How would you handle that?
Well, I'm lucky that in Sinn Fein we can bring it up. Our policy every year is brought up at our desk. If I disagree with a policy, I can protest that. I can go against it. I can get up and speak in front of our party leadership, our party membership, and give them my reasons why, and bring it to the party and try and get it overturned. It's not a top-down party; it's a bottom-up, and that's how we want it to be. If the party doesn't, if the grassroots of the party doesn't agree with something that the leadership is doing, what's the point?
I think the opposite is the case with the existing government. There, it's like whoever's got the money tells the thing what to do, and that filters down. And then when it comes down to the councillors or whatever it is, it's like, look, just tell them it'll be grand or whatever.
Yeah, but even I don't want to single out, but you see the leadership elections in Fine Gael. We've seen 2 of them now in the past 10 years. I can't remember exactly, and I think it's 65% of the vote belongs to the parliamentary party itself. The grassroots only gets something like 10 or 20, and apologies to any Fine Gael members watching this if I got that wrong.
That's very effective engineering to control things. Really,
exactly. Everyone knew by what was it? Leo resigned on Thursday, or on the Wednesday. By Thursday morning, everyone knew Simon Harris had got it because all the parliamentary party had come out to him.
Yeah.
So Simon Coveney, when he went up against Leo, got all the votes. Grassroots votes supported him, not Leo, but Leo was our Taoiseach. Whereas Sinn Féin is grassroots. If the grassroots disagree with the leadership, we tell them, and they will take on board and they will listen. Sinn
Féin have, over the years, really, really grown. I suppose they've grown. They're the 3rd biggest party in the country now, aren't they?
Something like that.
And they're the biggest overall.
On the island, we're the biggest. The countrywide, island-wide, we are the biggest.
Michelle O'Neill seems to be doing great work in the north.
She's doing what she said. She's going to be a First Minister for all, and that goes back to my point. We want to listen to everyone. We want to help everyone, whether they're with us or against us or whatever their political viewpoints are. We're still going to try to help them.
Absolutely, yeah. When Mary Lou sometimes she talks about the border poll and all this sort of stuff that's coming down the line. Now, some people are. It's in people's minds. Some people say it's not in their minds. Some people could care less about that kind of things, and United Ireland and all that sort of stuff, because obviously a lot of people are just concerned about what's in front of them, rather than the whole scope of the Irish Republic and the history of how it was formed and all that sort of stuff, and the sacrifices that people made over the years, and the consequences of the Good Friday Agreement, and how that's kind of coming to, like the work that Sinn Féin have done with all the criticism they have over the years because of the past. At the end of the day, they were, without them, it probably wouldn't have happened. Do you know what I mean? So, with that sort of it's in ways that's a great history to have. For your party. I think it's great because at the end of the day, all that the 1916 independence was all part of that, and Sinn Féin was a bigger party that time, and all that sort of stuff. But I think as time goes on as well, a lot of younger people, they don't really know the history. I'm sure you know all the history of Sinn Féin and whatnot, but as they've evolved now, they have great scope across the country, and I think that they're progressing all the time. Now, I suppose there's been a few candidates that didn't really work out and whatnot. But what's your take on that kind of the history of Sinn Féin?
Well, we can trace our history back to 1905, I think it was, when Arthur Griffith founded Sinn Féin. We can trace it the whole way back there. I know others dispute that claim, but we can trace it back. There was membership of the Ard Comhairle from the 1920s that were on the Ard Comhairle up until the 1940s and 50s and on further still. Everyone has dark spots in their history, I suppose, but that's just the nature of the way the country was formed. It was formed through armed rebellion. It was formed through revolution. There was gerrymandering, there was violence against the Irish people. Defending ourselves from violence is something we should be doing. It's the same people who would give it or try to lecture us on our past are the same ones who hold up the Ukrainian war and the side of Ukraine as the pinnacle of freedom and fully support them. Ukraine has a right to defend themselves, just like we had a right to defend ourselves in our areas and our territory.
What is your take on Ukraine, the conflict in Ukraine, and the conflict in Gaza?
Well, first things first, it's not a conflict in Gaza, it's a genocide.
Yeah.
I think that's a fairly foregone conclusion now. 30 plus thousand people killed, Israel claiming they weren't closing, blocking aid coming in, but then turning around a week ago and saying, oh, well, we're letting this aid in.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you're letting it in, you must have been blocking it in the first place. You're still dropping bombs. People had gotten to the stage where Palestinians have been eating animal feed. That's now been banned from importation by the Israeli government. One of the few things that starving people was eating, as bad for them as it might have been, you've now stopped them from even eating that. We're not. It's an absolute disgrace. The fact that everyone seems to just be standing back and letting it happen is ridiculous. It's something I feel strongly about. Sinn Fein is very strong on.
I know what Sinn Fein are. I've seen some stuff over the years there where the previous president of Sinn Fein was, closely worked a lot with the Palestinians over there.
That's it. We have a very close relationship with Palestine and Palestinian groups, and we listen to them. They asked us, we came under a lot of criticism from certain people over our trips to Washington. That the decision to go was because we were listening to Palestinian groups saying, you have the access, you can talk to the people that are making decisions. Talk to them for us, which we did. Mary Lou went over, Michelle went over, and they spoke to Biden, they spoke to other leadership members in the US and got the point across. We stand with Palestine. This needs to stop. This is horrific.
I think that the thing of doing a protest by not turning up, to be frank, the Americans just won't give a fuck. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. You will fall by the wayside.
Mary Lou or whoever's there, and they can be, causing a bit of a stir or whatever it is. As I don't know Mary Lou personally, but she can command the room fairly well from what I can see on the TV and different things, So if a representative of Sinn Fein, who in turn is looking at things from a, I would say, human point of view of what's going on, and it's not like, you see, there's some people as well that are jumping on the bandwagon of these things as well, like these certain wars and stuff like that as a political game. Sinn Féin have been there for the very beginning.
We've consistently called for a Palestinian state to recognise Palestine, and that's something I commend Neil Martin coming up and saying we're going to. What he needs to now do is put his money where his mouth is and actually do it. Recognise Palestine, pass the Occupied Territories Bill, actually do what you say you're going to do, and not just speak hot air.
Yeah, and it's funny that they're saying these things now at this time as well. You know what I mean? Exactly. It looks to me like it's fairly obvious that if they change their tune, to look for recognition of Palestine as a state, at this stage, it's a bit of, you know what I mean? It's like these are doing this. It's obvious that you're doing this for a political gain. That people might think, oh look, these guys are for Palestine. Well, there was nothing said about it, and they were going, like, she was over there with the Israelis there going down with
he went around saying how bad this was, and what happened on October 7th was another horrific act. But that doesn't excuse everything that happened in the past 75 years, 78 years.
And you see, the thing is that the obvious tie between Sinn Féin and Palestine is that the oppression of the British on the Irish is very similar.
Exactly.
But having said that, if you look at the oppression of the British versus what's going on over there, it's like,
night and day. It is.
It's like the comparison would be, as somebody said a while ago, is if the Brits came in and they just fucking levelled West Belfast.
Just carpet bombed Derry. I've seen that kind of.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And what would have happened then if that had happened? Would I can guarantee you Washington wouldn't just be going, well, they can defend themselves. They'd be condemning it.
I wouldn't say the only reason that didn't happen was because of America. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
I think one of the big things with the Good Friday Agreement was America.
Yeah.
I think the representative from America was George Hamilton. I think that was the representative. Working that whole thing together. But I can actually remember when that was going on, and I had a good interest in it as well. But when the Americans came into it, the whole thing really started to move forward.
Yeah.
And you can see the difference over here in Palestine, where the Americans, and everybody knows where their position is on it, that the Americans are controlled by this element of evil that's within Israel.
Yeah. One hand they're doing propaganda shots of we're airdropping food in, where on the other hand you're putting billions of weapons into the exact machine you're saying is wrong.
From a father's point of view, it's just it's hard to comprehend the level of evil. That's what I call it. The strongest language you could use is like, my daughter is 2, and it's just a different level of love that you experience with kids and stuff like that. But the loss of her through some sort of a lunacy like this would be, you never recover from it. You know what I mean? I couldn't see that happening. But on the scale of what's happening over there, the numbers, the thousands and thousands of kids that's happened to. It's hard to think about,
No, it is. It's terrific, and you need to stand up and do something about it. You can't sit by and just let these things happen. You need to speak. You need to let it be known. We can't accept this, and that's what the international community needs to do. It's what everyone from everyone down at the pub or all the way up to world leaders need to come out and say, this is wrong, and actually put a stop to it.
Yeah. Sinn Fein are the most, I would say, they're definitely the loudest voice in the government now for Palestine. And obviously you have now, I have to say, Richard Boyd Barrett and Paul Murphy as well are very good. Richard Boyd Barrett can get very, he's very, very good, but he gets very dramatic, and fair play to him. You know what I mean?
But it raises the issue.
It does raise the issue, But you guys have always been there. And what would you think now about? What's your kind of party's thing on Ukraine or that situation?
Sorry. Well, again, it's an illegal war. Russia should not have invaded. It's Ukrainian land. It belongs to Ukraine. They have every right to defend themselves, and fully support them in that. Russia can't. It's just as we'd be saying for America. You can't just go into someone else's country and say, "Oh, well, this is mine now."
Yeah.
That's not how it works. It's Ukrainian land. They deserve to be supported. They deserve to fight for their own country. They deserve to be able to live in their country. Ireland's a neutral state. We don't send arms, and fully believe we shouldn't send arms. Just as I believe we shouldn't send arms to Palestine.
Yeah.
We should send aid.
Yeah.
Help them how we can, in the strict way that Ireland can, and as a neutral state.
Yeah.
Give them aid, give them medicine, give them food, whatever it is, that as long as it's not military, we should give them, and I fully support that.
Yeah. What do you think about thing I noticed there over and it's very apparent to me when I'm out and about or whatever I'm doing. You can really feel the influx of people from different countries starting to live here. I remember when I was younger, there was no foreigners here, Then all the Eastern European people came over for the work around the Celtic Tiger and all that sort of stuff. What's your take on, not immigration, but, the way Ireland is changing and evolving?
Well, we've gone from, it used to be a case of, well, to a certain degree it still is, that Irish people would be the ones emigrating, leaving the country. We've now flipped that on its head a bit, and a lot of foreign nationals coming into the country legally and willing to work. I don't see a problem personally. If they're willing to work and willing to pull their weight, no problem. When it comes to illegal immigration, it should be stopped. That's, like we were saying before about policy, it's just bad policy. Sinn Féin's not for open borders. It shouldn't be a case that just anyone can waltz into the country. You should be stopped, checked at the border, not told as you come through passport control in Dublin, well, turn up to this office in 3 days' time. If you're coming in illegally, you're not going to do that. You're going to go on the run and hide somewhere that you can't be
you
found.
go to your mates, and your mates
exactly. You're going to go hide, and you need to be held at the border, checked, processed, and then let in, if applicable. Like if it comes to a stage where the immigration office has deemed that you are not allowed here. Send them home. It is as simple as that. It should be fair. It should be enforceable. They're the main things. There is legitimate reasons why people come to the country, whether they're fleeing war or genocide or famines. Legitimate reasons. But there's also some people who just want to come into the country, just to come into the country. And if they're
what do
coming,
they call them? Welfare migrants.
Exactly. If you're coming into the country either to save your own life, fine. If you're coming into the country to work and pull your weight and contribute to the Irish economy, absolutely no problem. But if you're coming over just to sit on the dole, absolutely not. That's my view on it. But there's the other side of that is, while I don't think anyone is happy with the way the immigration policy is in this country, harassing staff members at the immigration offices, calling them race traders, burning down, centres, that's not going to help anyone. What should be done is, if you are hoping for, or if the government is planning to introduce some migrants into an area, you need to liaise with the local community. You can't just turn around one day and think, oh yeah, this hotel's not a hotel anymore. This is where they're going to be living. You need to liaise with the local community. You can't just drop them in and be like, oh well, we know your GP practice is overflowing. Taking you 3 weeks to get a GP appointment. We know your schools are full, but we're going to drop 100 or 200 more people on you with no warning. You can't do that.
Speak English by now.
Exactly. Like that, you need to liaise. You need to find out. You need to talk to communities. Can you handle this? If we're going to put them in, how are we going to support your community? How are we going to put further investment, which is something that's not happening. They're kind of steps you need to be taking.
In terms of these things happening with regimental planning laws that are in place for buildings locally and all this sort of stuff, and the planning for those centres is exempt, I believe, from 2015, which means that the usual provisions that would have to be put in for, earlier on in the conversation we were talking about a development in Enfield, and who's going to put in the water? No, you are. No, you are. Yeah, you are. I don't know. That with the immigration thing in these centres or whatever it is, you put 200 people into a small place like Kildare or whatever it is, and the next thing you just turn the tide of the whole place. It has to be thought out a good bit more.
And that's something I think it's obvious to me anyway, and I'm sure other people can see it, is the government's just not thinking things out. They're not looking at, well,
why do you think they're doing that?
I think they're flailing, to be honest. They've had 100 years and everything is just collapsing. I'm not saying we're a failed state, we're quite a prosperous state, but what's good, however billions of surplus in our economy or in our budgets if we're failing hospitals, we're failing housing systems, we're failing transport, we're failing childcare. What good is it? It might look good in your balance sheet, it might look good to the boys out in Brussels, but it's not looking good to the Irish people. It's not helping us.
The ordinary man.
Exactly.
It's not. Like, you're right in what you're saying there as well. Like, we have overall we have an extraordinary economy. We have an extraordinary economy for the size of the place and the people that's here. And when you look at other countries, like say, for example, Norway, and how well that country is ran up to when they started the mass immigration. The place has fallen asunder now. It's similar to Sweden. That place has changed dramatically now in the last couple of years since they've allowed in the open border policy. But Norway, very smart government there, where they've reinvested the money that they've taken from the natural resources from the oil and stuff like that. It'd be great to see a government in place, and I'm saying this as from a voter's point of view. It'd be great to see people in government, as you said earlier on, with the attitude that you could believe that they were looking at things from the bottom up, like what you were saying, like from the voter's point of view, and then collectively trying to strive to make policies that would make the whole place better overall for now and for in the future.
So like them kind of like you referenced there, well, they were smart in that they invested in their people. They invested in their healthcare.
Exactly.
That's what we need. We don't need to be investing in useless projects there needs to be a bit more oversight on where we're spending our money. You know, children's hospital, everyone agrees we need one. We need a good children's hospital. Doesn't need to be 3 times over budget at least, and that's as of now in April. This is 2-3 years already delayed. It's now I know COVID had an impact on that, but the overspend, the delays, they're racking up.
Well, as I said earlier on as well, there's no really excuse for that. You know what I mean? It's just completely bad management.
Yeah, it's runaway spending on a needed project, but a badly managed and organised one.
I wouldn't see. Oh, look at. Maybe I'm just in my own imagination, but I couldn't see if Mary Lou was Taoiseach. You know, I think she'd be a very stern woman to deal with. You know, but I think with somebody like that in charge, I think there'd be a lot less messing going on, like the likes of that misspending on capital projects and stuff like that, because I think somebody like her would command an authority that you just wouldn't mess around with so much. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like Mary Lou will listen when it's needed, but she will also set down a marker when something needs to be reined in. You know, if there's an overspend going on, someone needs to go in and find out where is this overspend coming from, what is going on. That's not happening at the minute. You know, they're just government at the minute just seem to be, at least from my perspective, just letting it run. You know, they're not holding anyone to account. Don't seem to have anything in place to keep this budget where it was meant to be. You know, they don't seem to have any kind of oversight in that perspective.
The annoying thing then is when the whole thing goes pear-shaped, it's just like, oh, right lads, I'm going, good luck. And
they'll leave and then it's pass of the blame. You know, it's pass the blame.
And then hand it over to whoever it is. So let's say if Sinn Fein, and the general election now, that is I believe in November, is it?
There's a Westminster election in November in the 6 counties. And
no, for here
will be, I think they have up until February or March of next year to call it.
To call the election.
And the 3 government parties seem to want to let it run that far. I would suspect because they kind of see the writing on the walls, to be honest. People are sick of them.
It's such a pity to see that on a lot of these votes that go through the door. And I look at them, you know, where you see whatever it is, different things. The majority of the seats that are in the Dáil at the moment are held by the 3 parties that are in cahoots: the Greens, the Fine Gael, and Fianna Fáil. And you know, Sinn Féin, as strong as they are being the largest in the opposition, unfortunately, even with all the independents and everybody else that all vote together with Sinn Féin for these things, it's still not enough to get these policies overturned.
That's the nature of parliamentary democracy. We all want democracy. It's just one of the downsides, you know. Those 3 parties had enough seats won in the last election to form this government. While they may not have been the popular parties, I think Sinn Féin, were the popular party in the last election in 2020, and hopefully will be in the next one as well. We need, and like I said, we're willing to talk to everyone. You know, we will listen to other parties. We talk to the Soc Dems, we talk to whoever it is on forming government in the same way that Fine Gael, Fianna Fáil and the Greens will. They'll speak to, well, hopefully everyone, but a lot of them seem to rule us out for whatever reason.
Right. How do you see your background in your education, what you've done in DCU? UCD? DCU. Right. DCU. You know, your studies in there, how do you see that benefiting you going forward as a councillor and maybe a TD or whatever, or in politics generally?
Well, I kind of like I said, I did economics, politics and law for my bachelor's, for my undergrad, so I absolutely loved it and would recommend anyone even slightly interested in anything in them lines, brilliant course to take. You know, that gave me an oversight. Like, I have maybe not a deep understanding, but a good understanding of how economics works, micro and macroeconomics. I kind of understand politics. You know, I'd understand how that kind of goes on. You know, there's more. You learn more about politics by actually being involved in politics than you would in a lecture hall. But again, it's good experience. You get able to hear different perspectives. The law, you understand how the law works, how the law's understood, everything along them lines. Absolutely brilliant. And I would like to think that knowledge will help me on the council, looking at the economy of the county wide, that the local economies, how we can stimulate how we can stimulate the local economy you know, able to look at laws, you know, how is this interpreted? I've worked in the compliance sector and finance for the last number of years, since leaving college, which again, you know, my whole role in compliance is to review policies, review plans, make sure that they're, one, abiding by the law, and two, that they're fair to the customer. I worked in pensions before as a compliance officer, and my whole job was making sure that everything was above board, no one was being screwed, essentially, for lack of a better word, and that it was legal, and that it was absolutely fair, and that it was what that person needed. And that's what I want to do as a councillor. That's what I want to do as an elected representative, or even just as a representative. I just want to make sure that everyone is getting what they need, actually what they need, what they want, that everyone is able to be happy. Everyone's happy with Meath, how it is, how the country is.
No, I wanted to ask you that because, you know, a lot of the other candidates that will be going forward, they all have different backgrounds, do you know what I mean? And some of them have different backgrounds, and that would benefit the thing different, do you know what I mean? But, you know, that's interesting to see what you're saying there, because, you know, you have all that kind of, even though you're young, but you still have a great experience in stuff that's very practical going forward as a politician, together with, you know, having your finger on the pulse with the electorate from door to door and being connected in with Johnny's office there in Trim. You know, you're getting to really get a very live sense of what's on people's minds. And I think then maybe, you know, putting them two things together going forward, you know, gives you a very unique perspective on things going forward. I think, you know, as a just somebody looking from the outside, you know.
And I find it very, like you mentioned, being linked in with Johnny's office. I find that to be an absolute godsend, to be honest. Like being able to, you know, someone has an issue with, say, their local schools. I'm able to, you know, work on that from the local side. But I link in with Johnny's office, and he's able to work on that from the national side. You know, that's one of the benefits of working in a party environment, especially one like Sinn Fein, where everyone is listened to. It's great to be able to say it to the person who talked to me on their door, being like, oh, you know, this funding for the school got cut, or these teaching hours are gone, or whatever the issue might be. I can then try and help them from a local perspective, but then I also have the comfort of being able to tell them that, or go back to them and be like, look, I've had a conversation with our TD as well. He's going to bring this up on the Dáil. You know, he's going to raise this nationally. He's going to highlight this so that, you know, for lack of a better way of saying it, shame the government into fixing what they have.
And you see what that is now, that's what's jumping out to me there straight away in what you're saying there, is that there's a big difference between you being affiliated with a party as opposed to an independent, because an independent doesn't have the access to a TD directly.
That's it. And there's some very, very good independents. I won't knock any of them.
Absolutely,
that's it. Like they are, they do great work. But there is a difference between, there is only so much they can do. They can't work with they can work with national politicians, but it's not as easy for them. They're national politicians.
Well, if you have an issue, if me and you have an issue, and I say to you, like, there's such and such an issue, like there's somebody building a bomb factory or whatever at the back of the house there, you know, can you do something about it? You go to Johnny after, you walk out the door, you ring Johnny, get on this thing here. He's up in the Dáil tomorrow, and it's boom, straight. It's effective. Do you know?
Well, that's like even just an example off the top of my head. Like we were talking about the water situation around Trim and Blythe and in other parts of the county. You know, it's not even just in our constituency. You know, my colleagues in Ratoath and Ashburn are all dealing with the same issues, all from Ishkaherin. You know, but we're linking in with our TD team. They're bringing this up in the Dáil. Like, they're not letting this get swept under the rug. They're not letting, you know, just a county council official fall off. We're bringing it to government ministers who are saying, there's a problem. You're not, the water's not drinkable in these places. You're cutting off water to places. This is a 21st century, highly developed country.
Absolutely.
But all of a sudden we can't get water half the time. You know, we're able to bring these up in the Dáil because we're part of a party, because we have the access to our TDs, and we're also going to, like I said, you know, Sinn Fein, our TDs will listen to us. They will work with us. They're just like I am. They're just like any other Sinn Fein candidate going forward in this election. You know, they want to see the country work for everyone. They want the people to be happy. They want the people to be, able to drink water, live in a house, get on a bus, all these kind of things. They are a brilliant team, first off, and they want to help people. And that's what I want to do, and it's what Sinn Fein want to do.
I'm going to wrap up there now.
Yeah.
Come here. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Absolutely. And, brilliant. Thank you very much for having me.
No problem at all. I'm hopefully going to get this out to, we're going to put it in the Facebook groups and stuff like this. And the idea is that people get a good opportunity to see what you're about. And, I think we've pretty much achieved that in the conversation.
Thanks very much. Yeah, no, I have a great time.
So, listen, thanks very much.